bit busy. I'm about to try and remove the rear swing arm. Before I can do that, I need to remove the pivot bolt. Both ends of the pivot bolt are held by pinch bolts, and on the left side you wind that pinch bolt up so it clamps hold of the pivot bolt, and on the right hand side you undo it so you can then undo the large 24mm nut that's internal. That's proving to be a little bit difficult, and I'm going to show you how today, hopefully, I'm going to overcome it. Now, as I explained, here is the pinch bolt, here is the internal, female if you like, 24mm nut. So on the opposite side there's a pinch bolt which you need to undo. This one needs to be undone. So the other end of the pivot bolt is clamped tight. This end is allowed to basically move freely so the nut can be undone. Now, because this is a female 24mm nut, not everyone has a tool to be able to get over this. I've tried a few things, a few adaptations, nothing really worked because it was so tight. So what I come up with was this. Now, as you can see, it's an ordinary bolt, about the cheapest tool you'll probably ever buy to do this job. So, with this bolt, as you can see, I've wound on 3 nuts. Now, normally they say you wind on 1 nut. This is a nut you're going to put your spanner or your socket onto. This nut locks it and prevents it from turning or unwinding. That didn't work for me. Both of these, because of the tightness of the bolt, just started to unwind. So I put super glue behind this one, wound it back on, still didn't work. So before winding this nut on, I took an angle grinder to the thread just ahead of this, at the end of this nut. Angle grinded the thread off so this nut is prevented from unwinding any further down the bolt. Then wound this nut on just to secure this even further. That worked. This, as you can see, goes into here, fits nice, tight enough. Then you've got to get something on here to unwind it. Now normally I would use this fella. I don't have a 24mm spanner. This is a really good quality adjustable, so I can wind it up nice and tight. But you're never going to get enough leverage on this to undo that nut. So I have this, which is basically a length of scaffold tube cut down to length, and if you can see, it gives me enough length to really get some good leverage on things that are super tight. Anything that is too tight is likely to shear and snap, obviously, but where this is a massively thick bolt, I figured it's never going to snap. What I also did was take this blowtorch and apply heat first into the internal part of this. Obviously I've removed this bolt out of the way and applied heat directly inside, heated it up for about a minute, being very careful obviously to only apply the heat just internally into there, not get any heat near any of this painted surface. And lo and behold, after trying various things over a few sort of half-hour periods here and there, it has actually been able to crack and start to unwind. So with all of this and with this and with this, finally I've been able to undo this 24mm nut inside, and hopefully I'll be able to get the whole pivot bolt out and then finally remove what is essentially a very ugly swing arm and get to work on polishing it this afternoon. So here we are, and as you can see, I've removed the rear swing arm finally. The rear pivot bolt, as I was saying, came through here, through the rear section of the engine and out the other side here. As you can see, the rear shock has been removed. I had to first undo the linkage bolts, which themselves were quite difficult. So once those were undone, I was able to undo this bolt, which was an absolute swine basically, because I needed to use my trusty leverage bar yet again to get enough leverage to undo this, so then the shock drops out and then I can move that to one side. So the rear swing arm is completely out, and that is over here. So as you can see, it's all of this here, all the corrosion, lots and lots of corrosion. And as I've said before, really this swing arm should be a standout feature of the CBR, and this is in no way a standout feature in a good way. So I'm now going to set about cleaning, basically getting all of the old lacquer off of this, get it down to bare metal, get it brushed, and then get it to a point where it can be re-lacquered. That's what I'm going to start now. Welcome back to Deano's garage. I've forgotten what day we're at, to be honest. We're so far down the road now. Basically where we left off, I had removed the rear swing arm, have since started to sort out the rear swing arm in the sense of sanding it. Started off with the trusty old drill here, and I had taken most of the anodizing off with this fella here with the drill, and also used this fella, which is basically sandpaper on a wheel, which is really good when you just want to run along in a certain direction. Now it's always best when you do sand alloy to try and always go with the same grain, if you like, and never go crossways, because if you go crossways you put scratches into what you've already sanded, and it takes even more effort to sand them out again. So I've always been moving in the same direction across all the beams and parts of this alloy swing arm. So I've been using the drill with this, and then I've been using a good old block and wet and dry sandpaper, and I think, as you can see here, it's starting to look pretty good. I will be finishing this off tonight and getting it even more sort of sanded down and a finer grade before lacquering it. The only downside was this little ding here, which initially looked quite nasty because it really was, you know, it looked very dirty before. So it looks like a little dent now. I'm gonna live with that. I could probably get someone to alloy into there, weld it in, and then try and get it all out again, but I'm gonna live with that. I think all said and done, when that's on the bike, that's not gonna look too bad. The whole thing's gonna look pretty good. So where have we left off? I think last time we were talking about the forks. The forks have since gone off to a Honda dealership to be repaired. I had a major result with those forks. It turns out that there was the recall on the forks, and so I have currently got about £1,000 worth of forks, lower fork legs, and the stanchions and all the bushes and sills and everything being fitted to the upper tubes, and also I will have the bottom yoke basically, which was also part of a recall, brand new, and I shall be fitting that onto the bike if the Honda dealer doesn't insist on having to do it themselves, but they allow me to fit it. So that is a major result, and we'll come back to that and I'll show you what those fork legs look like when they're returned. But I'm going to get on tonight finishing this up, really beginning to really sand it down to a really good sort of finish before taking this to work. Where we saw before where I hung up the subframe, I'm going to be hanging this up tomorrow, and I'm going to be putting some clear coat on this to protect it, and then obviously I'll leave this for a good couple of weeks to really harden off. I've got plenty of other things to do. I need to get on with cleaning up the discs here. The wheels are going to be coming back from the powder coaters, and I need to put these are the old seals here, putting the new seals into the wheels. At some stage a new rear disc is going to come, that's going to go back on the rear wheel. I've got brakes to do. I've ordered some new brake lines, so the brakes will be sorted front and rear, and really then it's about reassembling the bike, giving the wheels with new rubber on, getting the wheels back on the bike once the rear swing arms back on the bike, obviously get the rear wheel on, and hopefully within about, well, I would estimate hopefully within a month, I'm hoping the bike's going to be up together and back together. At some stage I do intend, whilst the bike's in this sort of state, is to take this part of the lower airbox off, and then I've got full access to where the plugs are, take the head off and check the valve clearances. There's no better time to be checking the valve clearances really when you've got everything off of it, and I might as well check the valve clearances, make sure everything's good, in effect giving it a good service. Got the new front the new radiator for the front of the bike, that's going to go on at some stage as well, so obviously all the coolant will be drained, new radiator on, and then top it all up with new fresh coolant. So yeah, we're cracking on with the project, and hopefully soon it will be all back together.